Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would sit down and do yet another video for you lovely guys and gals. Let me get a sip of my water first. A beautiful radio voice going. Forearms are on point. And let's talk about this. All right, one of the things that I think is ridiculous, and I see even certain groups in the fitness world, like zealot groups, like the extreme flexible dieters, who say stuff like, oh, eating healthy all the time is an eating disorder, which is just absolutely ludicrous. By the way, orthorexia nervosa, to my knowledge, has still never been officially determined to be an eating disorder. And the idea itself is pretty ludicrous because the entire American society has an eating disorder. That is why we are dying of obesity and cardiovascular disease, diabetes. That's why these things are killing us, because we have extremely disordered eating as a society, and we gorge on junk food. And it gets so bad where when the fitness world is doing this, it's a problem, because we see in the mainstream, we have become so, what's the word I'm looking for? Insane with our food and eating just such enormous piles of processed garbage that have no resemblance to actual food anymore, that this has become so normal to us that that's considered normal, which should be dysfunction in and of itself, right? We're eating French fries, burgers, and cakes and pies every day. That is ridiculous. Okay, that's not food. This is just piles of processed junk. Processed oils, butter. Butter is a highly processed food. People seem to forget that. It's terrible for you. Piles of refined sugar, deep fried foods, all this stuff. This is not food. It's not food. And I'm not even talking about chemicals. Half the chemicals people are worried about are not the problem as much as these other things are. Not even close. And that's what the data shows. And we know that this way of eating is terrible, but it's gotten so bad that when people eat normal food, I'm not even saying eat healthy, because it doesn't even always have to be that healthy. Just eating normal food, which is what? Fruits, vegetables, grains, meat, minimally processed dairy, normal foods, food. They call it dieting. Let that sink in for a moment. We have become so sick as a society in our relationship to food that when people eat normal food, instead of just calling it normal, people call it dieting. And when people see someone eating regular food all the time, they go, are you dieting? You're on a special diet? You trying to lose weight? When it should be normal. It used to be normal. It's normal in many societies around the world. There are a lot of societies around the world still where that's just normal. But they're like, it's dieting. It's different. When it should be the opposite. What most people are eating should be the different and weird. Like, that's not healthy. It's not even food. It's just junk. Hyper-palatable, calorie-dense junk. That's why we're fat and sick. Not all this other stuff. Oh, it's the environmental toxins. It's these phytoestrogens. Oh, it's the whatever chemicals. No, it's the junk food. It's the junk food. That is what is killing us. That is also what is driving the obesity epidemic. And the obesity epidemic is killing us. All this other stuff is actually way less. And I'm not saying we shouldn't care about environmental toxins. Let me be clear. I am not saying that. We should. But it's pretty far down the list of priorities at this point. Unless it's something you're directly consuming, like alcohol or tobacco or recreational drugs, which those are all a problem too. They're considered normal to drink alcohol. It's a poison. A literal addictive poison. Medically and biologically, that is what it is. That's considered normal. But then, so if you eat regular food, oh, you're dieting. How insane is that? How insane. And it's gotten so bad that the fitness world catches on. We have whole groups and they call themselves evidence-based. They're clearly not, because they're like, well, it's just macro. No, it's not. And again, I don't dispute the calories in, calories out model. I am a very firm believer in calories in, calories out model. However, I'm also a firm believer in the data that shows that certain types and different types of calories in massively affects calories out. In other words, your calories out could change by 500 or 1,000 calories in a day while consuming the same intake of different types of foods. And that would be evidence-based. This other stuff is not. And then it's always, well, you've got to work these things in. You're telling me that if you don't work treat foods in every day, and they pretend like this is how weird this whole group has gotten. If you don't work junk food in, you can't define junk food. Yeah, I think we can absolutely define junk food. Food that contains either no protein or no fiber is junk food. Right? I'm not saying it has to have both, because chicken breast isn't junk food. Broccoli isn't a junk food. Brown rice isn't a junk food, right? They contain fiber or protein in significant amounts. How about that? If it's not meat or dairy, we could define junk food as fiberless food. Same thing. It's garbage. It's garbage. That's what's making you fat and sick. Now we could call meat junk food if it's really high in fat. I think that's also fair to some extent. Right? Shouldn't be eating really fatty cuts of meat. That's actually pretty well documented in the literature. But I digress. Back over to the point. This whole group, if you eat healthy all the time, notice that's what they'll say. Because they don't even want to say healthy. It's if you try to eat clean all the time. Meaning mostly whole foods. Minimally processed whole foods that have plenty of fiber, protein, vitamins and minerals in them, and phytonutrients. So if you try to eat healthy all the time, you have a mental illness. Okay? The illness in main society is spread over to an entire giant sect of fitness enthusiasts who've been saying this for over a decade now. No, it's clean eating all the time. Healthy eating all the time is a mental illness because you have to work the junk food in. If you don't, you can't be happy. If you don't work the junk food in, you don't have a good relationship with food. So you're telling me if you don't eat a bunch of processed crap at least once a day, a small amount of it, because you're addicted to it, you have a problem. How much of a carryover is that from our sick society that have been taught and reinforced and told we have to eat junk? It's how we comfort ourselves. If you've had a bad day, you deserve it to feel better. Treat yourself. If you did something good, you reward yourself with it. If you have any celebration with friends and family, you have to eat the junk. It's part of the celebration, along with the alcohol and other stuff too. What they need to realize is that our society as a whole has a mental illness and a disordered eating situation. And our culture has been heavily built upon it. That's the problem. There's no problem with people who say, you know what? I don't want to be fat and sick and unhealthy. I'm going to try to eat healthy and clean and try to eat real foods 99% of the time. Maybe have an occasional cheat day, but not too often. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. You know? But the rest of the time, I'm just going to eat real foods. These people will then try to call that unhealthy and a mental illness. I mean, damn. Damn. Yeah, if we don't drink alcohol, celebrate with a addictive poison, we're mentally ill. That's a lot to unpack. We don't eat ice cream and cakes and pies. We loved them as kids. They tasted great. We choose not to eat those things and try to work them into our food every day, a little bit of them. we're mentally ill and abnormal. No, it's our society as a whole that's mentally ill and abnormal. How much of it is because we don't properly address mental illness as a society? I think that's a big factor. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.